So just to first start out with a little bit of an introduction, Board Bill 31 directs interest earned on the RAM settlement to support residents as they recover from last month's natural disaster. So right now we have a little over $30 million in interest that has been generated. So this bill proposes using that $30 million to provide residents aid now, and the relief package represents what the city can distribute quickly. In this moment of recovery effort, the board's goal must be to deliver this bill to the mayor as soon as possible and get direct resources out to folks in our community as quickly as possible. I also want to recognize that we know that $30 million is not enough to satisfy all of the needs. This is a start, not the end, and I want to make that clear throughout this. As we got the FEMA designation yesterday, over the coming weeks and months, we will have a much better handle on what federal resources we are getting as the Missouri General Assembly moves forward with their deliberations. We'll have a much better understanding on what resources the state is providing, and I anticipate that we will have to, once we know what all those different funding sources are, that we will be back at this table discussing what more aid looks like for the north and west sides of our city. Basically, Board Bill 31 creates the Tornado Relief and Recovery Fund, which will be established by the Comptroller's Office and maintained by the City Treasurer. The fund can accept additional funds through city appropriations, private donations, and other sources. So it will allow us to track all of the resources that we are giving out for recovery. Any interest earned on the fund will also stay in the fund and be used as relief money. And any reimbursements, say, FEMA reimburses us for some of the things that we have used this fund for, those reimbursements will go back into a sub-account within the Tornado Relief and Recovery Fund. The fund's purpose is to support residents in impacted areas by filling gaps in immediate need. Those gaps include home repair, temporary housing, storage for displaced residents and their belongings, financial help with insurance deductibles and legal aid, repairs to critical infrastructure that has been hurt, such as street, sidewalk lighting, and addressing hazardous trees, support for nonprofit organizations providing staffing, shelter, supplies, aid, matching funds for state and federal disaster grants, and FEMA eligible relief expenses. I also want to point out that this fund is specifically designed to help residents. Impacted businesses are not in this round of allocation, although I anticipate that in the future we will take up funding specifically to support small businesses. And with the FEMA designation, we do know that other lines of funding through the Small Business Administration will be opened up to be able to support small businesses. But our goal in Board Bill 31 is to really make sure that we are stabilizing folks who are either displaced at the moment or living in unsafe structures or are at risk of displacement because of the condition of their properties. And so Board Bill 31 is really intended to provide those stabilization funds, those emergency funding at this moment.
I was just saying that I have two amendments that I've run past the sponsor of the bill. She's considering them friendly amendments that would include language in the bill, because as of right now, it's just related to the storm and tornado, not the straight line winds, flooding, et cetera, that were language that was specific in the state and federal designation. Mm-hmm. So to make sure that the language in the bill mirrors what the federal and state emergency declarations were for, and then secondary to that, including language in Section 3C related to fast tracking and aid eligibility requirements that a prioritization is given to the impacted area, but we're not limiting it only to the impacted areas that are enumerated there, because there are other areas within the city that were impacted by the storms as well. So, which is the intent. It's not to, we still want to make sure that the areas that were hardest hit get prioritization, but that if there are areas adjacent to or in other parts of the city, you know, one of my colleagues here and one of my constituents was one of the ones, one of the deaths in the city, but that death occurred in Carondelet Park, which was in the first ward as a result of tree damage in Carondelet Park. There are many parks throughout the city that also suffered damage from these, you know, severe storms as well. So just making sure that we're prioritizing efforts within the most impacted areas, but where we need to also address concerns as well, are not excluded from the bill.
Sure. So what the board bill does is it gives the mayor's office the authority to determine how funds are spent, including issuing RFPs. So we could be issuing RFPs to various nonprofits, and we've already been working with the mayor's office to be able to get those up and active shortly after this board bill passes, so that we can, and I think the idea is to issue those RFPs on a rolling basis, instead of saying that we have to wait 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, accepting a rolling basis, so that we can start to quickly get funds out to organizations that are helping with anti-displacement work, and that are helping with bridging those gaps. In some areas, it may be that the city is the entity that is doing the work and it is not RFPing it out. I could see with the helping folks meet their deductibles, that very well may be something that DHS takes on. And we do that directly from the city rather than having to contract that out. And so a lot of those conversations are being had right now about what's going to be contracted out, what house. But the goal for all of it is to do it quickly. So making those determinations through looking at both our internal capacity to do things quickly versus the external capacity to outsource something to get it done fast.
When it comes to accountability, I think that is extremely important that we know as these funds are being dispersed and as these as the tornado relief and recovery fund is being set up, what is going to be the accountability measure? So one of the actually great ideas that the Alderman from the 9th brought up on page 6 is that the mayor's office is committed to doing monthly reports that will go to the Budget and Public Employees Committee that will detail expenditures and any data and numbers of individuals that have been served by the outcome of this fund. And then they will also provide an annual report to the Budget and Public Employees Committee upon passing of this bill. So, bill. And what we're doing is, we left off one of the input that we heard from the community. We left off the Bay neighborhood. That was not intentional. As we looked at the path of the tornado, that was one that left off. So we wanted to include that and end up just putting the neighborhoods in alphabetical order. One of the things that I think people were saying last night over and over, they thought the way that it was listed, that was going to be priority. And some of the most impacted hit areas was not at the top. So even though this exhibit is just an exhibit that talks about where these funds will help, we still want to make sure that we're being intentional and that we're listening to the community. So we made sure that we put all the neighborhoods in alphabetical order, as well as adding Baden to the impacted area that can be eligible for the use of this fund. And with that,
I'm very happy to see that this is now an alphabetical list.
Yeah.
When I got in last night, even though I made it to my house by 10 o'clock, I wasn't able to go to bed till after midnight. And my phone was ringing at 7 a.m. about this once again. And so this has really been, I mean, just a hot button thing. So alphabetical order in the future, please, please, please. I'm begging like James Brown.
But one of the things I don't see, and maybe I missed it, I don't see anything relating to demolition. Is that going to be another part? And the reason why I'm asking this is because I have several households where the house itself is still standing, but the house next door fell on the household. And so these are going to have to be priority demolitions before that impacts negatively the household next to it. And was there a reason why we didn't put demolition any place in here?
Yes, ma'am, because I think we talked about this when we were talking about the budget last week. We have a lot of money right now from SLDC. I want to say over millions of dollars to do demo. And then there's even money within our building division to do demo. So we didn't want to also put it in here to also say demo when we already have pots of funds for demolition that, like I say, I know, I forget the organization that former Mayor Francis Slay sits on as a board, but the state appropriated millions of dollars for demolition for programs, which I know that the mayor is already taking significant steps to start to do demo on LOA properties. But we already had a pot of money for this, understanding that 30 million is not a lot, and we didn't want to put that in this pot when we have two pots already for demolition for the city of St. Louis.